Hey, what is accounting? What is bookkeeping? Did you ever wonder where the ideas of accounting or bookkeeping actually came from? Well, you don't need an Accounting for Dummies course because this special video is going to show you exactly where all the ideas of accounting and bookkeeping actually come from.
It all starts here, online at the supermarket with your grandma.
You see, your grandmother had something called a checkbook register. She could also call it her checkbook or her checkbook ledger.
She would take out her ledger book and write down everything about the check she is going to give to the cashier. Things like when, who, how much, and why. Most importantly, why? Because
recording the reason why helps you remember later all the information about that check, and it helps you know that that was legitimate. This would help her when she looks back at the register to make sure that she recorded all of the deposits that she made for all of the income she had from the different jobs that she did. It also helped her double check that she properly recorded all of the checks that she writes for all of the expenses that she has. And she could always double check if she wrote down the correct reason and the correct amount, date, or anything else. Now, organizing her transactions in the ledger book in this way helped reveal something called the running balance, which is the balance after each transaction, so that she would always know how much money she had in the bank at a specific moment in the past.
when Grandma took a look at her ledger book, she saw that a lot of the reasons were the same. She then got the idea that she could sort the ledger book by reason.
And when she looks back at the ledger, she can see that it would be very helpful if she could have all of the transactions that were for the same reason grouped together so that she could see all of them at once.
So she could see the total she spent on each reason.
So she got the idea that she could go through the ledger book and pull out all the transactions for the same reason and put them in the same place so that she could see the total for that reason. For example, if she wanted to see all the money she made just from her cat sitting job, she would go through the register, pull out all of the transactions that gave the reason cat sitting income, and put them all on one document. Same thing with the expenses. She could go through the register and pull out every check that relates to car expenses and list those on another page in another book. So she took a separate book, separate from her check register, and made each page in the book a page for each specific reason. This way, she could list all of the transactions for that reason on one page. You see, finding the totals of each reason will really reveal all the information about your finances and how well you're operating as an individual. And she would take the total of each reason and she would use the total number to look and see how well she's doing and how much she has. Now, each of these totals would be organized onto a document so that she could see clearly how much money came in, how much money really went out, and how much should be left over at the end. And there were different financial reports that Grandma would take the totals and organize them so that she could see what's going on with her family finances.
So we could call it Grandma's Book of Reasons, but it's really called the General Ledger. In the computer, it's called the Chart of Accounts.
The idea of using the general ledger in the days before the computer is exactly how we use the chart of accounts when recording in the computer and in QuickBooks Online. You see, in the days before the computer, the general ledger was simply a book, where each page in the book represented a different reason or a different set of transactions that are in a category that you needed to have the total. And what you would do is you would record the different categories of transactions into the proper account. In the general ledger, you needed an income account and a separate expense account for each of the different ways that money came into and out of the business. And you would also need an account in the chart of accounts for each bank type of account that you had and each credit card type of account that you had. Once your general ledger was set up, you would simply copy all of the transactions that you recorded in the check register into the appropriate account in the chart of accounts. This way, they're recorded in two separate books, but in the chart of accounts, they're organized by reasons or by category. And of course, once all of the transactions were copied over into the general ledger, you would then have to summarize each account and get the total or the ending balance, because it was the ending totals that really revealed what was going on with your financial position.
Then the income and expenses would be saved to one report called the profit and loss.
Some of the totals would be recorded and organized onto a document called an income statement, also called the profit and loss. And the profit and loss would have some of the totals from the general ledger, and it would reveal the net profit of your operations, which means as an individual, this report should show you how much you are supposed to have left over after a specific period of time.
That really helped us understand our money situation when we looked at each total.
Some of the other accounts would go on other documents. For example, the bank accounts and credit card accounts would be organized onto a different financial statement called the balance sheet. And the balance sheet would compare how much you have versus how much you owe. And by looking at it, you would be able to tell your general financial position. But before any of the totals would go on the profit and loss or the balance sheet, she would first make a list of all the totals in the general ledger, and all the numbers would go first on that list.
So, at the end of each month, she would take each total and put it in a list. And that list is called the trial balance.
Then after looking at the trial balance, some of the numbers would get pulled off and go to one financial statement, and the other numbers would get pulled off and go to another financial statement.
So, you know how well you did each month.
And that, my friends, is the whole idea of bookkeeping and accounting, whether you're a business or an individual or family.
In the old days, we used ledgers, but today we're going to show you how to do it in QuickBooks Online.
You see, in QuickBooks Online, it's the exact same thing, only faster. The register window in QuickBooks Online looks exactly like your grandma's register book, but as soon as you record something in the register in QuickBooks Online, the software will automatically post it to your chart of accounts and put the proper number in the proper page in the book. Now, when you look in the computer and in QuickBooks Online to see your chart of accounts, it won't look like a book. It will look on the computer simply like a list, because somewhere in the computer is a separate record for each item on the list in your chart of accounts. So you can rest assured that as soon as you record a transaction in your register, QuickBooks Online already knows the correct account to record and copy that transaction into. And of course, once the transactions are recorded into the general ledger in the chart of accounts, QuickBooks can immediately show and update your trial balance report. So as soon as you record something in the register, the totals in the trial balance will change. And of course, the same numbers that show in the trial balance will be shown on the individual financial statements as you open them up as soon as you record a transaction. Now, believe it or not, grown children who work more than one job have their own income, expenses, bank account, and even their own credit card accounts the same way adults do. So keeping financial records for a kid would be the same as keeping financial records for a grown person or an entire family. So we might as well use a special example to keep everyone engaged. Let's imagine we're doing the books and records of a kid.
Hi, I'm the kid.
That's right. The kid whom we're doing the home finance for in this video is none other than the internet sensation, Serena Mae Jackson.
Hey, kids work hard for their money too.
Now, of course, we know that adults have expenses that kids would not have, like medical or groceries or anything else. But if you can just imagine that you need to record your expenses exactly the way that you see us recording Serena's expenses here, then you'll know how to do it for your own personal family finances. And of course, you will record all of your bank transactions, all of your credit card transactions, and even the transactions where you pay or receive cash exactly the same way that we are recording it here in this tutorial. Now, when we input the chart of accounts together, it's very simple. It's as easy as typing in a list. Each item on the list will have 3 simple pieces of data as you type it in, and you'll see how I type it in, and you'll follow me step by step. The first piece of data you have to put in for each account is the account name. Now, the account name can be anything you want, but then you also have to put in account type, and then after you choose an account type, you have to choose something called a detail type. And the guidelines I give you will make things very, very simple. You see, the name can be anything you want it to be, as long as you know what it is when you look at it. But exactly what you type into the name field is exactly what you'll see when you look at your results on the financial reports. Now, the other field of data you have to put for each account is account type. An account type determines how it will behave and function and which reports it will show up on, and it will also determine what types of transactions you are allowed to record into that account. And lastly, the last piece of data you have to choose for each account that you put in the chart of accounts is called detail type. And usually, detail type is not important. In our case, it won't be important at all, but you should know that it sometimes gives extra functionality to the account. And again, we will not need detail type, and putting in the wrong detail type with us won't affect anything. So let's start by putting in all of Serena's expenses.
And sure, we have personal expenses too. Just like a business has expenses to maintain themselves as a company, I have the following expenses to maintain myself as a kid.
So exactly what expenses does Serena have?
I pay for my own transportation, so I have transportation expenses. I pay for my own food, so I have food expenses. I pay for my own school and job supplies, therefore I have school and job supply expenses. And don't forget about cat food and cat treats.
Minecraft
Roblox, Geometry Dash, Crunchyroll, and Fortnite.
Entertainment expense. So here are Serena's expenses listed clearly. And notice, we not only put the name, but we made it very simple by making them all the same account type and detail type. Because those technical details are not important for us if we're simply doing home finance. But QuickBooks Online requires that you put something in those data fields, so simply put what we have listed here. So watch how to input the chart of accounts. First, we go over to QuickBooks Online, and as we learned earlier, there are two ways that you can open the chart of accounts window. You can go to the top right and click the cogwheel, then go over to the left column where it says Your Company and go down and click Chart of Accounts. You can also get to the chart of accounts by going to the left panel and clicking Transactions, Chart of Accounts. The very same window will open up. Now, if you look, you can see that QuickBooks Online thinks that it's helping us by adding accounts before we even input any of our own accounts. That's because most companies have very similar names to the different expenses they have, and they have very similar names for other accounts like their bank account and so on. We will not be using any of the accounts that QuickBooks Online put. Instead, we will be putting our own accounts and only using those accounts. And one of the ways to make it easier to see only the accounts that we're using is to make sure that your cap locks button is turned on the keyboard so that the name of every account that we input ourselves will be in capital. That will help us distinguish between the accounts that we made and the accounts that already come with QuickBooks Online. So all you have to do is click in the top right corner and click New. Now, we have to put in a name and a type and a detail type for each of these. So the first account name is Food Expense, and it's an expense and it's Other Business Expense. So with the cap locks on, we click in the name field, FOOD, and of course the account type, we choose Expenses by scrolling down and click Expenses. And only in the detail type, we're going to choose Other Business Expenses. And this will be the same type and detail type for all of the Serena expenses that we type in. So when we click Save, we can come back to the chart of accounts and scroll down to the expense area, and you see the only one in capital letters is the one we just added, Food Expense. But I'm going to make it much easier for you to find the accounts that we put ourselves. Watch. If we scroll all the way up, we have the option to display only the accounts that we created ourselves and disregard any of the accounts that were already on the list when we created the account. So just click Created by You, and you can see right now we only have one. But don't worry, we'll have all the others in a moment. So we come back here and see Transportation Expenses is also on the list. So we click New, and we type in Transportation Expense. And of course, all of her expenses are account type expense and detail type Other Business Expenses. Now, look what happens if we click Save and New. It appears on the list, but it keeps the new account window open so we can go a little faster. Let's go to the next one, Supplies Expenses. So a supplies expense. And again, look what happens when we click Save and New. It will remember the account type and detail type because it assumes we're putting in many of the same type. Notice you now have 3 on the list here on the left, and we can put in the fourth expense, cat-related expenses. And of course, we leave the type and detail type the same and click Save and New. Now, right now, we only have these 4. But if you click New, you probably should be able to type in the last 3 yourself. So let's pause the video and see if you can type in these 3 exactly the same way that I showed the other 4 and see if your chart of accounts looks the same. So now you can see that the accounts that we created were all expenses, and you can see we have now entered all of Serena's expenses, and these are the ones we'll be working with during this tutorial. Now it's time to put in her spending accounts. And when I say spending accounts, I mean the accounts that someone spends money from. You spend money from a bank account. You spend money from your credit card account. And you could also spend money from an account that you keep records of for your physical cash when you spend cash. Those are what I call spending accounts, and those are the accounts in the chart of accounts that will actually open up in a register window where you can put in the transactions for that bank account or that credit card account, or put in your cash transactions in your cash register book account. And those 3 accounts are very simple to set up. But if you look closely at the account types, you'll see that, of course, a credit card is a credit card type of account. But if you look at the bank account, you'll see that you have to choose if it's checking or savings in the detail type. And if it's a wallet or a lockbox or a purse that you're keeping records of in a separate account, you need a separate account in the chart of accounts, and that will also be a bank type of account because you need that to open in a register window to specifically record all of your cash transactions. And that'll be a different detail type. That detail type will be cash on hand, so you can see the difference between each of the 3 accounts that you spend money from. And it's very simple. We do the same exact thing. We scroll to the top. If you're not in the chart of accounts, you have to reselect it by clicking Chart of Accounts. And don't forget to choose only the accounts that were created by you. That cleans things up and makes things much more clear. Now, we click New Account. And of course, the first name will be Serena's Visa. And if account type is credit card, then there's very little you can choose for detail type. So this one is done. Click Save. And you can see that Serena's Visa was added to the chart of accounts. Click New. This one is Serena's bank account, so we call it just Chase Bank, or you could just say Chase Bank account. And of course, this will be a bank type of account, so it opens in a register window, but this will be checking. So the detail type sometimes helps because it clarifies, but don't worry if you choose the wrong detail type. It won't affect anything that we do here. And of course, we click Save, and her bank account is on the list. And now we need a separate account, an account register, to track her cash on hand, whether she keeps it in a wallet, a purse, or even a lockbox. So we type in the name. This will be Serena's wallet. And of course, we need it to be a bank type of account, so the account will open in a register window, and now we'll put the account type cash on hand. And when we click Save, we can see that the new accounts are added to the chart of accounts, and now we have only the spending accounts and the expenses, which means it's now time to enter Serena's income accounts. Now, in order to really understand how you can benefit by using QuickBooks Online for your home finance, We're going to imagine that Serena has 2 different jobs. This way, you can see how nice it is to compare the income from one job to another so you can better make choices about how to spend your time and energy. So here are both of Serena Mae Jackson's jobs that we will be recording the income from into our QuickBooks Online.
My first job is being the neighborhood cat sitter. So, I need an account in the chart of accounts to keep track of all the income I get from taking care of the neighborhood babies. My second job is being the outdoor bouncer here at the local biker bar in Queens. This job is only on weekends, and they pay me cash. I'm on the books because it will give me a 1099 at the end of the year. Hey, behave yourself and have a good time. So, I need an account for my bouncing income the same way I needed an account for my cat sitting income. Every time I record a deposit in my bank register for bouncing income, it will get recorded in the bouncing income account. This way, I can tell the difference between how much I'm making in each job.
Hey, Serena. How are you?
Hey, buddy. Hey, you gonna put that cigarette out?
Oh, sorry.
Hey, behave yourself. Have a
Okay.
good time.
Huh?
This way, I can know the difference between how much I'm making in each job. Then, I can decide how much time to spend on each.
Hey, Serena.
Hey, behave yourself. Have a good time.
You got it.
So now here are the last 2 accounts in the chart of accounts that we need to enter. Notice the account type is income, and to keep things simple, the detail type will be the same for both, service fee income. So let's go ahead and type it in the way we learned. We click New, and the name, as we set it up, will be Income from Bar Bouncing. And of course, it's an income type of account, income, and the detail type will be service fee income. Of course, you can keep this window open by clicking Save and New, and then do the next one, income. And of course, you have the same account type and detail type because we clicked Save and New. Now we're finished, so we can click Save. That'll close the window, and when you finish, this is what Serena's chart of accounts should look like when you're done. Now, just a little bit of house cleaning regarding the chart of accounts window. You could always switch it back to see all the accounts, which means the accounts that you made will be mixed in on the list with all of the other accounts that QuickBooks Online automatically provides. And just to let you know, you can remove any account, whether it's yours or one of the ones that came with QuickBooks Online, by going down to the row of the item you want to remove, and in the pull-down arrow, you can click Make Inactive. Yes, Make Inactive. That means that account will no longer clutter up your chart of accounts, and this way you'll have a smooth experience. And if you enjoyed this little bit of comedy education, you should know that this video is only one video chapter in the full home finance course right here on YouTube, and it's free. So if you want to enjoy learning everything about QuickBooks Online, while at the same time mastering all the ideas of personal and home family finances, you can watch the entire free course by looking in this video's description field under the table of contents to the link to the main course. Serena and I would love it if you watched the course and made a little comment in the comment section so that we could help you with anything you need.